And once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Somewhat Sports podcast. It is myself, Jurg, starting things off with Dame and Chris alongside me, as always, bringing you guys all the updates, all the news, all the analysis for everything you need to know. Guys, not as much of an information heavy week as we've had in the past. Of course, we've finished just about the entire bulk of the NBA offseason with the season about to start in about 2 weeks or so from now, if I'm not mistaken. But we still have a couple morsels of news to talk about, as well as us getting into 5 storylines that we're all going to be excited for throughout this upcoming season. And for the one other hockey fan that listens to this, I have hockey news for you, my guy. So don't you worry, I will get to that in the show today. But fellas, let's cut to the chase. The storylines that we all are going to be looking at as the season progresses. Who wants to kick things off?
I'll begin. So one of my storylines that maybe one of you guys have, I have the James Harden trade request. So I'll give my thoughts on it first, and you guys can respond. But this is something that I don't think is going to be resolved before the season. I do believe James Harden will suit up for the Rockets to start the season. However, it's going to be something to look at throughout the season because if the Rockets struggle or it's not up to James Harden's expectations, that trade request isn't going to go away. It's just going to get stronger. You're going to hear more rumors about it. Maybe James Harden will tell his agents to push harder for the trade. But now, especially with the Bucks and he involved after James Harden added those two teams to his list, that's going to be something to watch for this season, especially if they struggle.
Yeah, so I also have a storyline including James Harden as to where he's going to end up or if he's going to stay with the Rockets. Okay, so this whole James Harden saga is very weird, and it's pissing me off personally.
Wow.
But I'll say, yeah, so I'll get to that. But let's get to the details first. So initially it was revealed that he wanted to get traded to Brooklyn, and then there was the dark horse was always Philadelphia Sixers, and then today it was revealed that he's adding teams like the Miami Heat and the Milwaukee Bucks, which is hilarious in my opinion.
Just all championship contenders.
Yeah, just all championship contenders, of course. And I'm looking at like the list right now. It's clear that Brooklyn was number one. Of course, they have KD and Kyrie, but also they don't have a coach. Let's be honest. It's Steve Nash, right? So this is going to be a free offense type of team. And I read reports that Harden was angry when Steven Silas, is that his name, got hired as the Rockets coach. So I'm thinking, okay, so Harden doesn't want a coach where they tell Harden how to play and whatnot, right? He doesn't want organized ball. He quote unquote wants system ball. I don't believe that for a second. I think he just wants free for all offense, right? Yeah. Of course, it's James Harden. You could say whatever he wants. I don't believe it. That's why, like, I think he doesn't want Steven Silas as his coach, right? That's why he was angry about it. Now, okay, before I get on to what got me tight about this, I do not think he'll get traded right away. I do think he'll play the start of the season with the Rockets, but I could be dead wrong, of course. Do I think that he'll play with any of the teams that were listed? I don't think so, man. I really don't, because I'm looking at the teams now. I don't think the Nets offer is strong enough. I also think that Fertitta, is that his name?
Yeah,
Tillman
Fertitta, yeah.
Yeah, so Fertitta, I don't think, based on how Harden has handled the situation, I don't think he's going to, like, give him what he wants, because he's kind of scummed the Rockets, and he's just like, you know what, bro? I could see Fertitta kind of being like that. Be like, you know what? You kind of just screwed us over a little bit, so I'm not going to give you to Brooklyn, right? And it was reported that that the Rockets want either Kyrie or KD, which they should, obviously. That's a reasonable asking price for James Harden, right? To say the least. I don't think that package gets it done. Actually, we'll save Miami for last. And then Sixers, I think, could get it done if they offer Simmons. I don't think Fertitta wants to make a deal with Morey because he thinks Morey juiced him.
Right.
So I think it's just a clash of stubborn personalities, so Fertitta.
He kind of did, actually, because when Morey...
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, because I remember reading reports saying that he wanted to do, like, something more creative, like, outside of sports, and then weeks later, he's in Philly. Like, that kind of shocked me.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I agree. But also, Fertitta is kind of a scumbag, so...
Yeah.
But regardless, I just don't think it's gonna happen because I don't think Morey. I do think he wants Harden, but I do think a part of him, the lesser part, wants to see how the duo works out between Simmons and Embiid, and plus the surrounding pieces they got is kind of perfect for that team right now, right? So I could see the hesitation to pull the trigger. I don't think it's gonna happen. Then you have the Bucks. The Bucks just traded a king's ransom for Drew Holiday. I don't know what they could offer. DiVincenzo, whatever, and also Middleton would be like a
Yeah, I think it'd be a package centered around Middleton, but like they have no draft picks to really add to it, so
Yeah.
yeah, and
Middleton would
also
be enough.
Middleton's like 55 now, bro. It's just like are you gonna put him as the centerpiece? It's just like if I'm trading Harden, I'd want like a 23, 22-year old, that's like a solid player, right? That you could kind of build around. So I don't think the Bucks have anything to offer that would be enticing right away, which leads us to the Miami Heat. Now, Jurgen, obviously, you're going to speak more towards this because you're the Miami Heat fan, so you can tell us what you think. But I'll say this: do they have pieces to offer? I think they can. I don't think they're going to trade Bam. So
Definitely.
obviously, the main target would be Tyler Hero, and of course, I heard reports that Riley isn't comfortable trading Tyler Hero in
I
the
read that
package.
too. Yeah,
Now, I think Tyler Hero, if that's the most you could get, again, I think Heat fans are funny to me because I think they're they're overestimating Tyler Hero's ceiling a little bit. Jurgen, you could obviously touch upon that. I just if it takes Tyler Hero, Kendrick Nunn, and a few picks, I don't think it's a good enough package, but if you're getting Tyler Hero and he's as good as everyone thinks he is, and if Fertitta's like, you know what, we could build upon this kid. He's 20 years old, right?
Yeah.
So he could be like a foundation piece, right? So I guess you do it. Again, I don't think it's a strong enough package in my opinion, but I'm seeing Miami Heat fans just hesitate. And I trust me, I get it. Like I'm so hesitant to give up foundation pieces, young guys, right? I overvalue the Knicks' young guys so much, right? So I
oh,
get
we
that.
know.
Yeah, I get that hesitation, right? But if it's James Harden, right, and also Jimmy Butler is 30 years old now, right? Am
Yeah.
I
30,
correct with that?
31, yeah.
So you're gonna have to. I think that's an underrated aspect in all this, man. I think you're gonna have to take advantage of like his prime years, right? This is a guy who also had a meniscus surgery, I think 2 years ago, 2 seasons ago, and they're one piece away, honestly, to get to that finals, so maybe like compete for a championship. So I think if it takes Hero as the main piece of that package, I think you do it. I think there could be a better package out there. I personally think it's going to go to another team that's not listed because, again, it could be the Celtics, but of course Danny Ainge is kind of a scumbag. But that's what I think. I think if it takes Tyler Hero as your main piece, whatever, do it. I just don't think it's the best one. But that's just my opinion.
Right, right. I'm curious really quick because I will touch on, as being the Heat fan of the show, I will touch on my perspective from it. But just out of a little bit curiosity, because one of my topics that I have personally, I did not have the Harden deal because I figured you guys would go into it, and I wanted to try to look for other stories. Do you guys maybe think this could be a deal that happens around the trade deadline?
Yeah,
I wouldn't be shocked. That's why I think he's gonna stay with the Rockets to start the season. I don't see it being resolved before.
he should wait to look, but Harden shouldn't be in any rush right now because
I
I don't
agree.
think
Yeah.
if the Rockets I think are gonna still compete, bro. They have a decent roster, I think.
Having
Right.
new coach, adding John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins. Like if I was him,
Christian Wood,
I would just see how it works at
Right.
first before I do anything.
there's no rush.
Yeah, so I'll lead into my first point really quick before the Tyler Hero thing. So one of my points was, how active will this year's trade deadline be? I think potentially this could be, and the NBA trade deadline, it's kind of become a spectacle over the last like 5 to 7 years. Like, and sometimes we get some interesting trades, sometimes we don't. I think this has real potential this season to be one of the most interesting trade deadlines we've seen in a long time. Because I agree with you guys. I don't expect the whole Harden ordeal to be done before the start of the season. I think we have to at least get a month or so in, especially because he needs to pass COVID protocols right now, and the league is really strict on it. I think he has to pass like 6 tests before he's even allowed to practice. So that's going to
Hmm.
be a bit. But it's not just Harden being the superstar; it's other pretty good pieces. Like, I think there's a real chance, could the Spurs blow it all up? Could they trade DeRozan and Aldridge, who I think both are on 1 year deals, like in terms of how many years are left? They both have a year remaining. And DeRozan, I think, has a player option, but he's probably going to opt out. I think Sacramento with Buddy Hield is in play because they they would have preferred to keep Bogdanovich, but they lost him. Management and Buddy Hield, they've kind of gone back and forth in like the last year of his tenure or so. So I think he's up for play. Kevin Love has always been a piece that is talked about at the deadline. Drummond. So there are just so many pieces that could move at the trade deadline. I think that this NBA trade deadline has potential to be the best one we've seen in a long time because there's so many names that could be moved. I think it creates a lot of intrigue. Like Chris mentioned before, Danny Ainge is not a guy that usually pulls the trigger. Will this finally be the year that he pulls the trigger? Will some of these teams that could make the playoffs, will they pull the trigger? I'm really interested, and I hope we get a very active deadline with big names moving, but that's a wait and see. In regards to the Tyler Hero thing, I am actually more than willing to trade Tyler Hero for the right star to come to Miami.
Dude, people are losing their minds over the
Right.
idea of trading Hero, dog. Holy shit.
So before the Heat fans come at me for not being a real Heat fan, let me educate them really fast, or let me remind them. In 2003 to 2004, when the Heat made the playoffs in Wade's rookie year, that entire core with Grant, Odom, and all those guys, and Butler, no one wanted that team to get Caron Butler, I should say. I should emphasize. No one wanted that team broken up. Heat fans were very they did not want to trade anyone on that team. And those guys got traded. For who? For Shaq. And what happened 2 years later? So Pat Riley has a track record of being more than willing to trade pieces. My only thing is that it needs to be the right piece coming in. And for me personally, I don't like James Harden being in Miami because, and I've said this earlier, and I'll say this on the show because obviously I said it earlier off the show. While Jimmy Butler will be up at 4 or 5 a.m. in the gym, James Harden will be up at 4 or 5 a.m. in one of the clubs in Miami that still runs for 24 hours, even though it's a pandemic. It does not matter. And this has nothing to do with the quote-unquote Heat culture. Heat culture is known for getting the best out of guys, and I believe that a lot of guys, you put them in Miami, they are going to work harder because that is what Riley and Spoelstra and that team demands. And they get the best out of guys. I don't doubt that they can try to push Harden, but Chris, you said it perfectly. And I'll let you finish off the Harden stuff. If he doesn't want to be somewhere where it's hardline, why does he have Miami as a destination? He needs to consider the basketball perspective of this because Miami's a great city. I think all of us would love to live in Miami, but in terms of playing there, this is just a complete clash of cultures for what Harden wants. So personally, I wouldn't trade Hero for Harden. I would trade him for someone else that I think better fits the team. But in terms of Harden, I agree. I wouldn't do it. And I also agree from your point, Chris, where if Miami were to offer that deal, I also think Houston could get something better. So I wouldn't do it from Houston's perspective. But if I'm Miami, I'm not touching this deal. Just like they didn't touch the Westbrook trade rumors from before last season. It's just fit. These guys don't fit.
Yeah, so and Dame, I'm gonna go quick so you could kind of get your thoughts on this, but I could see why Harden wants to go to Miami, right? And I think it's more external than internal, bro. It's the lifestyle, it's nightlife, it's more that, right? And again, I don't Harden to me is just an anti-Heat player, right? And you talked about it. It's lack of culture versus pure culture. It's workload, and Harden's Harden's talented enough where he could kind of, you're seeing it now. He's talented enough to kind of finagle the training camp, all that stuff.
Yeah.
That shit doesn't work around in Miami, right? Gotta be this is the same team that suspended. Who do they suspend for being out of shape?
James Johnson
and James Johnson. Yeah, both of them.
Yeah, right. So, bro, they don't take it's the Heat and the Spurs that I think set the tone in terms of specific players that they want, right? Harden is not that player, bro. It's just you need to be a certain breed to be with the Miami Heat, right? And he's just not that guy. I think the idea of it, of course, you're going to kick tires in because it's a superstar and Miami's kind of on that threshold of competing. So you're going to look into it. Of course, you're going to be interested. But he's just not that guy for them. I don't know how well he would mesh with Jimmy Butler. I'm assuming that any talks they have, they'd kind of maybe Riley is Riley, so maybe he doesn't need to, but I think they would at least talk to Butler about any type of pending moves.
Right.
Now, of course, look, for me, I think the perfect trade partner would be for Bradley Beal, right? But I don't think it's
Yeah.
going to happen because Beal, they just traded for Westbrook, and it's Harden is more like publicized that he wants out.
Yeah.
So,
That would need a year.
I,
The whole Bradley Beal thing needs at least another
yeah,
year to see what happens
yeah.
in Washington.
And by the time the whole Giannis thing will be kind of settled in, so we'll know what happens there. I do not I get your perspective, right? I think Harden would be enticed to stay long term in Miami because of just the lifestyle of all that.
Yeah.
But you're right. If I'm trading Tyler Hero, and obviously they value Tyler Hero like really high, right? And of course, like after the season he had, I could see why. So this is a very valuable young blue chipper. I would, if I'm going to trade him, then I'm with you, Jurgen. I would look for a star that I think wants to be in Miami, but also embraces that culture, right? And
For
I
the
hate
right
using the word,
reasons. Yeah.
yeah, for the right reason. And I hate using the word culture because it's so overinflated now, so it sounds cringe to me. But yeah, you go for a star like Bradley Beal or someone else.
I just go get the best package. Like
Yeah.
those are the organizations that don't like go for what the superstar says and just go get the best package are the ones that are successful. Yes, you saw the latest thing you saw with the Pelicans and Anthony Davis, but what the Lakers gave was honestly the best package. There was no
Yep.
better package that
Yep.
you were gonna get. Same with the Bucks and Holiday. Like that was the best package you were gonna get.
Yeah.
Whether Holiday asked to be traded or not, that was the best package you were gonna get. Whether he wanted to go there or not. So same thing with the Rockets. You want to be a successful organization, like you just gotta bite the bullet. If you superstar, if he looks bad on you that you didn't send the superstar where he wants, like doesn't matter because you gotta do what's best for your franchise and you gotta get the best assets you possibly can.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like the thing is that I think no matter what, I think Harden will still get dealt to a playoff contender of some sort because I just don't see a lottery team trading much for him. Like if I'm one of these lower tier teams, like because again, Houston wants a good bit, and if it's a lottery team trying to make the deal, like how many of you those young assets would you want to give up for Harden? And knowing that there's a chance that when you get him, he could be totally checked out because he didn't want to go to your team, like that's my only concern. My only concern of what could nix this deal, like the organization trading for him would have to have some contact with Harden in terms of like during the negotiations. And if
Hundred
they get
percent.
and if they get the feeling that he's going to check out and not care at all, like I don't care if him not caring, he could still drop 29 for me. That's not enough for me to want to get a guy that's not going to care about my team and he's guaranteed to leave in 2 to 3 years. Albeit, like, I think that's the situation for most of these squads, but still, like, so I think he's going to end up at a playoff contender. But I agree with Dame. Whichever contender gives you the best package, you take that, bar none.
This is why, if I'm the Denver Nuggets, I'm staying away from this. Because I know for a fact Harden is not going to want to stay long term in Denver. And plus, they have a little thing going on with Jokic and Murray. No way Harden's going to want to play off ball. Right.
Yeah.
So for a team like the Nuggets, I wouldn't do that because I know they've been like thrown around as like a possible, and they could honestly offer like a good trade package. But again, I think it's going to be a team that we don't expect. I really do. I do think Fertitta thinks that Harden may have kind of blown this out of proportion. And I'm going to say this to finish it off because we've been on this segment for too long.
Yeah.
Harden has been so immature about this whole process, bro. What are you doing, dog? Like, I get it. You don't want to be there, but dude is 31 years old, putting in emojis in his story, just clubbing out there with no care in the world and no mask. It's just, dog, what kind of example are you setting, man? Like, this is why I don't like Harden at all, man. Like, on the court, I don't like his style. I get he's a superstar talent, but then he just, like, pulls off some kid shit like this, man. It's like, bro,
Yeah.
come on. It's for me, it's not right. I don't think it's right, but whatever. Not my team, not my favorite player.
Yeah, this is a superstar trying to force his way. This is trying to use the whole player empowerment thing gone wrong. Like LeBron, AD, they did it right. KD did it right. Harden is not.
But I'm not surprised. But you see, this is what I think. This is what separates the certain groups of like superstars.
Agreed.
Like Harden is outside. I think character is a big part of it, and Harden doesn't have that. So
Yeah.
yeah. All right,
Dame, your next topic on your list.
My next topic on my list was the Lakers repeating and the whole story behind that. You want me to just continue on it and then you guys give
Yeah.
your...
Yeah. Go
Okay,
ahead. Go ahead.
So obviously they won the championship last year, and they didn't really bring back the same team. They kind of rebooted, and in my opinion, they got better with Montrezl Harrell, Dennis Schroeder, Wesley Matthews, Marc Gasol. Now there's rumors about Pau Gasol coming back. Like obviously, it's not gonna make a big difference on the court, but his veteran mentorship could be big for that team. Um, it's kind of this kind of goes into this season and next season because all this season, of course, is gonna be can they repeat? They're gonna get every team's best shot because they are the current champions. And can LeBron repeat off such a short off season, especially because he's aging? And if they do win this season, all next year is gonna be about LeBron getting number 6. All season is gonna be can LeBron get that number 6 to catch Jordan? Is he gonna be the GOAT? All that. So I think big reason the Lakers repeating is the story this season is because of what it could be for next season.
Yeah, I don't really have like the Lakers repeat as a major storyline just because I think it's like a foregone conclusion that they're the heavy favorites. I mean I'm curious to see how it plays out with all the new members. Like I get it. I think they're going to be conservative with LeBron and AD because it's a short off season. So I don't think they're going to play heavy minutes. And of course, the NBA just released that rule that you can't take primetime games off. So
Yeah.
I could see them kind of sitting out games against like the Kings or whatnot. Those 10 p.m. games on the East Coast,
Yeah, they also sent a
particularly.
memo to teams that like in back to back games that aren't like national TV that like they're okay with players sitting out.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so so I think the Lakers are gonna finesse that, right? So I mean, I'm curious to see how it works, but that's about it. Again, I have the Heat the Heat, Jesus Christ. I have the Lakers as an overwhelming favorite, so I mean that's all I have to say about it, to be honest, Jurgen.
I don't necessarily. One of my topics isn't necessarily about the Lakers, but I guess it could kind of tie in with them because Dame went really like in the long game in terms of what this could mean for 2021, 2022. But what interests me going into this season will be the future of the teams that have been title contenders these last few years.
Mm.
As a Heat fan, I get my news from a Miami-based show, and from the Heat executives in front office, from what I heard verbatim, is that they don't know if the Bucks got better. They don't know if the Celtics got better. They don't know if the 76ers or the Nuggets definitively got better, but they know the Lakers got better, a lot better. So, like you said, Chris, the Lakers are definitely the favorite, and like Dame said, they're going to get everyone's best shot. And to go with that, I'm going to be really interested to see what does the future look like for teams like the Clippers and the Nuggets and the 76ers, because the Clippers, Kawhi only has a year left. If they fail to win a title again, will he leave? The Nuggets, if they fail to make it to the finals this year, will they make that big trade they need? The 76ers, could they blow up the core if they underperform again this season? Like, in sports, there's only a finite amount of time where you're towards the top in your respective league. And I think we're reaching the end for a couple of these teams in terms of their title window, and maybe for one or two of them, like the crossroads where it's like, are you just gonna be top 2 seed and be competitive but not win it, or are you gonna make that championship winning move? And that's mainly being the Nuggets. So that kind of ties in because all these teams will try to have an impact on what the Lakers can do this season, and I'm really interested to see how the results of this season really affect the future of those squads.
Yeah, so to kind of respond to what you're saying, Jurgen, and I guess I could after I say my point, I could kind of bring up another storyline that I think is kind of interconnected. So yeah, I'm looking at certain teams right now because I think the Lakers have about well, how much did LeBron resign for? 2 more years?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think he's gone after 2 years just because he wants to play with the son. So I personally think the Lakers have 2 more years of LeBron left, and then after that, it's kind of I don't know. It's up to debate whether as to what they're gonna do. But they have Anthony Davis. He resigned, so they'll be fine. Not fine, like not in terms of championship ready, because we all know how an AD led team has been before. But it is the Lakers, so I'm not gonna say anything. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. It's a different situation. So like you, Jurgen, I think the Nuggets are a team that like they have to make a move soon, bro. Like you cannot be flirting with like semifinals, Western Conference Finals, right?
Right.
I think like you're gonna I thought they should have traded for Beal by now. I like 100% I would have traded for Beal. I think they're too in love with Michael Porter Jr. And I get it, Michael Porter Jr.'s ceiling is like high, but you have to explore options because they have been saying no apparently to like deals, like dead ass like no. And I'm like, all right. I mean, if it's for a star like Beal, I think I would have like at least talked to them about it. But you're right. I like to see what they do. And plus, they're like a small market. Let's be honest. Like Nuggets,
Yeah.
it's Denver, right? So like you're gonna have like like you have the pieces to trade for a star. And I think if they trade for a star, they're a championship contender easily.
Yeah, especially because Jokic and Murray, real quick, like you said, they're a small market. Jokic and Murray have already signed their long term
Yeah,
deals, so
yeah. Also, yeah, and they're young as hell too, right? So then the Raptors, I think, are in a weird position because I think Lowry's up next year. Maybe he'll resign for less, but I'm one like they already lost Ibaka and Gasol this year, so we might see the effects of, like the Raptors kind of take a step back. I like to see if they would kind of go in like a rebuilding phase, like a borderline rebuilding phase because they have Van Fleet and they have Siakam, so they have two good players, right? That are also 25, 26. So
yeah.
I think they'll be borderline ish. So that'd be interesting. Who else do we have here? Yeah, the Bucks. It's for me. Giannis could say it's title. It's not title or bust. I don't believe that. I do think it is
Agreed.
because if he doesn't sign that contract, which in like 3 weeks, I think, or 2 weeks, I think he's gone. I think he's for sure gone. Who else do we have here? Philly. I think if they don't make noise this year, I think one of the two are gone, unless Simmons isn't gone for Harden by the time of the trade deadline.
What constitutes real quick as making noise for them? I'm just curious. Like, what would that
I
expectation
think
be?
they have to make the finals. They
Yep,
have to make
I
the
agree.
finals.
Yeah,
They have to like
there's too much talent, too much potential with Daryl Morey and bringing all these shooters in. Like they need to make the finals.
yeah, and this is a perfectly constructed roster for them. I think
Yeah,
so. If you're not gonna make the finals, then I think one of them leaves. If
I don't. Yeah,
Simmons
I don't think they
stays,
gotta win it. They just gotta make it.
Okay,
yeah,
I was just
I
wondering.
agree. I
I was just
agree. The
wondering.
Nets, I think the Nets are also intriguing because I don't want to talk too much into this because I also have the Nets as another storyline that I want to talk about. But it's going to be interesting because if they don't win the championship this year, they have 2 more years left of these two, of Kyrie and KD. So I would like to see, and plus they have assets to bring in another star. I don't know if it's a Harden caliber star, but they have enough assets to make like to trade for like a B rating player. You know what I mean? So I'd like to see what they would do if they don't win the championship this year because to me that's a championship or bust team.
Right.
And yeah, well, I think that's about it in terms of like borderline playoff teams and borderline championship teams, right? I don't know. Do you guys have any other teams that are like within that threshold that you'd like to see make a move or are interested in?
I think we said
You
them
got
all.
it all. Yeah,
Yeah, I think all the other teams that like could make moves, like I mentioned before, with all the names that could be available at the deadline, I think a lot of those teams are trying to compete for like the middle of the playoff hunt. Like they don't want to be a lower seed because they don't want to catch a Lakers or a Bucks in the first round.
But yeah, but I kind of want to rebound off this because it kind of has to do. Well, I mean, it might have to do with both you guys. A team affiliated with the teams that you kind of brought up already. I have can the Clippers bounce back this year? Now, I do think the Clippers. We're not going to talk about the Paul George contract yet. That will be a different segment. I do think the Clippers made some underrated, low key, decent moves. But the problem is that their moves weren't as good as the Lakers, and that's who they're competing with essentially. Still to this day, in my opinion, they didn't make those moves that put them over the top, which they absolutely needed. I think Serge Ibaka is an upgrade, as we talked about in a previous episode. They got Kennard, which is decent shooting, and then they got Batum, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, so they made some like good low key moves. I think because I think Ibaka was one of the more major moves, but I think they're gonna need. For me, this is a championship or bust season for them too. I think
100%.
because I don't know what's gonna happen with Kawhi. I think he become a free agent next year. So look, I think they're gonna have to get past the Lakers. I don't think they will. I think again they made low key moves. I like them, but I don't know if it's enough to take them over the top. I'm not even gonna say they need to get past the Lakers because after what I've seen in the collapse that occurred, they're gonna need to like have open perspective because the Nuggets I think are a threat.
agreed.
Who else? I think the Warriors are gonna be better. I don't think the Warriors are gonna be a threat, but they're gonna be better. So I've seen, but again, we've seen what a team like the Mavericks could kind of do. Like they've made them sweat. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Warriors are a team that could kind of flirt with like eliminating the Clippers in the playoffs. So the Clippers need to get their shit together, bro. I don't know. if Ty Lue is an upgrade of Doc Rivers, to be honest, because I don't think Ty Lue's a good coach. To be honest, I just think he's a car salesman, bro. He's a player's coach. Like he like talks to
Nah.
them, he gives them what he wants. It's like they need to get their shit together, man. You need to make adjustments. I'm not buying the Paul George talk until I see it. We'll see how he rebounds. I think Kawhi. I gave Kawhi a pass, somewhat of a pass. This is coming from a Kawhi fan because he's kind of done his due. He's kind of like he's kind of proven himself, right? Paul George is gonna need to step up, and they don't have a point guard still. So I don't know. They need a bounce back. I don't know if they can. I'm hoping they could be based on my fandom for Kawhi. What do you guys think?
Like you said, the Clippers did make some underrated moves. The Ibaka being the biggest one because that solves their rim protection issues, which was a big thing last year. But just as important as the shot blocking was and the rim protection, they really needed a true point guard that can run an offense. When Rondo rumors were happening, I was as a LeBron fan and a Lakers supporter, I was scared that Rondo was going to go to the Clippers because I thought that would have been a plus signing for them.
Yeah.
Just to have someone run the offense smoothly instead of Patrick Beverly who just runs around. So they still haven't addressed that. Maybe they somehow will, but I don't see it happening. So yeah, they addressed the rim protection, but their biggest issue is point guard, and I don't think they addressed that. So I don't think that brings them over the Lakers, like you said, Chris. But like you said, it is championship or bust because I wouldn't be surprised if they don't and have an underwhelming year again and a playoff disappointment and Kawhi leaves.
Yeah, my whole thing with this team is that I don't think the Mavericks series should have been as close as it was, and I think they should have finished off the Nuggets. Like we all agree, the Lakers Clippers should have been the conference finals matchup last year. But the problem is that and Chris, I think what you said, you hit the nail on the head. This team should not have the playoff expectation of we gotta see the Lakers and we gotta beat the Lakers because that's what screwed them over this past
Yep.
playoffs. Looking ahead past Dallas is what gave Dallas life even when Porzingis went down. Looking past Denver helped allow Denver to come back and force that game 7 where we saw the meltdown. I ain't giving anyone a pass on that team, by the way. I don't care who it is, like just from my perspective. But again, that's a different debate for another time. Um, this is championship or bust. I fully agree with the both of you because Kawhi's going to be a free agent. Like you said, Chris Paul George signed a contract extension. He's there for the long term, which you had to do with what you gave for him. But now Kawhi, like that's the big thing. And ultimately, this is Kawhi's team. And when you sign with the Clippers and when you make a commercial with your shoe brand saying that you're coming for the city and the city's going to belong to you and you don't win a championship, there are a lot of problems there. So I think this is championship or bust. I agree. But speaking of championship or bust teams, because Chris he mentioned this team earlier in terms of what they're them being a Tyler bust team. And Dame, I know this is a team on your list of topics because spoiler alert, ladies and gentlemen, I see the list before the show starts. We all see each other's lists. Dame, what are your thoughts about Kyrie and KD? I don't think this is necessarily a championship or bust year, but I think this is going to be a pivotal year for the organization with those two.
Wait,
So
wait,
yeah,
Jurgen, did you have this storyline? Is this one of yours as well? The Nets?
To an extent, I have KD and Kyrie involved in one of my stories, but it's not net specific. So I want Dame's perspective on the Nets.
Yeah, so also I think I think me and Dame also have so we'll transition now then me and Dame also have how will the Nets look as a possible storyline. So Dame, go ahead.
yep. So yeah, I have the Nets with KD and Kyrie. Biggest thing with them is obviously they haven't played together this season, even though they signed last season because KD had a torn Achilles. But the biggest issue with them is staying healthy. Clearly, KD is coming off of Achilles. You don't know if he's going to be the same player. Kyrie is literally every season he's had his own share of injury issues, and even before the Achilles, KD still had his own injury problems in OKC as well. But another issue with them is going to be their chemistry issues. It feels like every team Kyrie goes to, there's always some kind of problem. Maybe it's not all on him all the time, and the media maybe makes it seem like it's all on him. But somehow, chemistry issues and team problems always seem to follow Kyrie wherever he goes. So I think that's going to be big. Um, Going back to the championship contender or championship or bust, I do think it's championship or bust with these Nets because of the expectations of having a duo like KD and Kyrie. Uh, Obviously, do I think they're going to blow it up if they don't win the championship? No, but I think it's going to be a major disappointment if they don't win the finals. Even if they don't make the finals, I think it's gonna be a major disappointment, and it's gonna look bad on both of them. Uh, Whether they get a third star or not, that's still to be seen. But even if they don't, they have probably one of the best supporting casts around stars in the entire NBA with Dinwiddie, LeVert, Jared Allen, DeAndre Jordan. Even if they stay with those guys, that's more than enough to not only make the finals but win the finals. So it's gonna be interesting to see if they can stay healthy, how their chemistry issues go. But it's definitely a championship or bust year for them.
Jerry, you want to go or you want me to go?
I'll let you go because, real quick. My thing with KD and Kyrie, and I think this is going to be the big thing on the whole championship or bust thing, in terms of your guys' opinions. Just the return from injury and the impact that stars will have on their respective teams. Like, how quickly can they get used to playing again and fitting with the team? I look at KD and Kyrie with the Nets. Obviously, is the biggest one, but Steph. I know he played some games to end last season, but I think this is a true reset for him and the Warriors in terms of getting a full year now. And we mentioned Harden before. What if John Wall plays really well in Houston? Like, would you want to leave a John Wall that's looking like an all-star again if that is the case? And how will Boogie look like? I just think so many stars are coming back from injury properly now. Like, some of these teams that weren't that great last season, they could take a different step this year, with what they can do, just by getting players back. So I think KD and Kyrie, I want to see how the season starts with them, because I think it'll be a slow start, um, for this duo because of the whole injury thing. But that's just my opinion. I would hope that late in the season, come playoff time, they're ready to go and geared up. So Chris, like, kind of ricocheting off that, assuming that they're both going to be healthy come the playoffs, give your thoughts on this championship or bust status for the Nets.
Yeah, and by the way, Shams just tweeted that Kyrie has been fined 25K for violating league rules governing media access.
Of
Thank
course,
God.
of course.
I mean, look, if you wanna like bitch about it and not do it, then okay, lose money. Who
Just
cares? It's your
problems,
fault.
problems just follow Kyrie, like I said.
That part I don't
Okay.
understand. Really quick, like, it's in the guys' contracts. They have to do interviews. Like, he
Well,
can't.
no. It's fine. No, bro. He wants to lose money. It's literally nothing that. No, no. I don't want to get into a tangent right now,
Okay,
Jurgen. I
okay, no,
don't
no.
want to because
I just have to
I'm
point that
getting
out to the
so riled up.
fans.
No, I feel you. I feel you. So I'm gonna kind of I'm going to answer both of your storylines. Well, actually, because Damien's storyline is the same as mine. So Jurgen, like you said, a lot of stars are coming back. Right, and that includes Kyrie. Wow, now I'm fucking it up. That includes Kyrie and KD. So I think the Nets their ceiling, I think, is championship appearance. I don't think they're gonna win the title because I don't think they can beat the Lakers, but I do think reaching the finals is their ceiling. I also think I don't know who said it. I think it was another podcast or it might have been on Colin Coward or one of those shows, but they had a very interesting similarity where if the Nets don't pan out or if they melt down, it's kind of similar to how the Clippers melt down, right? They can envision that being like a little parallel. And I thought that was kind of interesting too, because again, you don't know how KD's going to be. I think he'll be fine. Kyrie, of course, is Kyrie. He has baggage with him, of course. I could see them reaching the finals, but I could also see a possible meltdown. I'm hoping for a possible meltdown because I'm just not a fan of the Nets as well. So that's just the bias standpoint of me. I do agree with Damian. I think they have a really good supporting cast for their two stars. Now, Kyrie could possibly stir some shit, right? Where there's chemistry issues and there's locker room issues. Like we saw last season. I think there was a little bit of an issue with Joe Harris and Kyrie. And then there was that issue. Kyrie said, "Yeah, we're gonna need another star." I think he said like or something along the lines of that. And then there was that whole commotion of how DeAndre should be starting over Jared Allen. Spoiler alert: he shouldn't have. Jared Allen is better. So I like, and that's what got Kenny Atkinson fired. I don't know. I think the Nets will ultimately look fine because I just think Kyrie and KD will look better. Like they're gonna
Rough
look.
night, boys.
Yeah, I just think Kyrie and KD are gonna look fine. They're not. They're two superstars. I mean, well, there's one superstar and one all-star that don't depend on their athleticism as much as other stars. And also, to kind of not piggyback off what Jurgen said about stars returning from injury, I think a lot of them are going to look good because let's not forget there's not going to be any fans, right? I think this no pressure environment is going to allow these players to transition into becoming who they once were a bit smoother than usual because there's going to be no distractions. I get the travel part, of course, is going to take an effect on them, but I do think this no pressure environment is going to allow them to into becoming who they once were. And even if they're not, I don't think there's a pressure for them to be that good as what they once were because again, no distractions, no fans, at least for the first half of the season. To kind of summarize it without going all over the place, how will the Nets look? I think they'll look fine. I think they're going to look good. I have them as a favorite coming out of the East, but I do have them also possibly not being the team that they're kind of destined to be with the talent they have. That's
Right.
just me.
Right. Well, also like again, this being the first year for both those guys, and especially KD with that injury.
They after this they have what 2 years left. I actually won, and then they have player options, right?
Yeah,
So
and they can always re-up.
yeah, but I don't know. Kyrie, I feel like Kyrie's gonna retire after this contract's up.
He might. He might. So kind of entering some of the last points that we want to make with the NBA storylines that we're going to watch out for. Again, because I see all the topics beforehand, I think this will kind of blend into at least one of Dame's final points that he has. But one thing I'm kind of excited to see this season, guys, and I think you guys can attest to this, kind of the youth transition we're about to see in terms of teams making the playoffs. I think we're kind of reaching the end of playoff windows for some of these teams, not championship contenders necessarily, but teams like Portland and Orlando and maybe Houston, depending on how things go down.
The
I think,
Spurs too.
yeah, the Spurs no longer being that consistent playoff team. Like you're starting to see some teams are going to fade a little bit and have to go into a mini rebuild or a full rebuild, depending on the situation. And I think young teams like the Mavericks, the Pelicans, the Grizzlies, the Atlanta Hawks in the East, their stars aren't young per se, but the Wizards have Rui and Denny. Like there is some great young talent on a couple of these middle tier teams that I think we could see a couple new playoff teams in both conferences this upcoming season because of just the amount of young talent there is and the superstar potential that guys like Ja and Zion have. And of course, like I said, Dame, I want you to lead the way on this team. But the Suns are very intriguing because I think they've reached that playoff window now.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, uh, the Suns are my one of my five topics as well. It's how far can the Suns go? Last year they were literally on the edge of making the playoffs. They had to go 8-0 with some help in the bubble. They did go 8-0, but they didn't get the help they needed. And CP3 on the other hand was OKC dragged them into the playoffs by himself after ESPN probability had them at like a 0.02% chance of making the playoffs. They're supposed to be like a lottery team with a top 5 pick, and CP3 dragged them all the way into the playoffs. Now you're combining these two, I wouldn't say forces, but these two, this player and this team. Um, I think CP3 is gonna do big things for Devin Booker, who's low key maybe a dark horse for MVP. Maybe it's too early to say that, but going into maybe not this season, but next season, I think CP3 can have that effect on Devin Booker. I do see the Suns making the playoffs. My thing is I'm excited to see how far they can go on the standings, and then how much of a threat they could be to some of these teams in the West, whether it's the Jazz or the Nuggets, or if somehow they get past the first round and see the Lakers in the second round. I'm just excited to see what kind of threat they could be to some of these teams.
Okay, yeah. So one of my storylines is possible surprise teams. Like Jurgen kind of said, you kind of brought up the youth movement. Damien, you kind of brought up the Suns. I kind of have both of them intertwined with my topic. So to kind of answer Damien's first point, or to kind of talk about Damien's first point, I have the Suns. I don't want to spoil anything because we have a special episode coming up soon about playoff prediction about seeding predictions for the NBA season. But I think the Suns are going to be a good team. I think Chris Paul is the perfect player for that team to kind of, leap towards that threshold of just being a bottom of the barrel team to actually making strides. And they did make strides, right? But now it's from bottom of the barrel where they once were to, all right, we're kind of in that 10th seed, even though we did well in the bubble, to now let's make the playoffs, right? I think Chris Paul is the perfect leader for that team, and he's gonna push Devin Booker forward. And Dame, I don't think it's an outlandish statement that he could be a dark horse for MVP. I just don't think it's going to happen because if the Suns do make it the playoffs, I don't think it's going to be a high seed, to be honest, because the West is a war zone and a bloodbath.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to see how the Suns pan out because it's not just Chris Paul, it's Jay Crowder, it's Langston Galloway, it's Etuan Moore. They have a bunch of really good pieces that they added. So I think they're going to be underrated. I think they're going to be better than a lot of borderline playoff teams, and they're also going to give playoff teams a lot of like competition, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to be a very scrappy team, but they're also going to be good. So again, I like Devin Booker, I like Chris Paul too, and I like DeAndre Ayton. So I'm rooting for them, right? And it's like I would like the Suns to make the playoffs. You know, it's a different team, right? I think something fresh is always good for the NBA. So for to kind of rebound off Jurgen's point, again, my storyline is surprise teams. I am a huge fan of when teams make that leap, right? And I think the ultimate example is how Golden State did it a few years ago. Like they always took that step forward
Yeah.
every year, right? It was like first round and then semis and then finals and then championship. I think they just made the championship. I don't like once they went to the finals, they
Yeah.
actually won it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so again, the Suns are part of that. I think the Hornets are going to be very underrated. I think they're going to be very underrated. I want to see how the Hawks do. I'm not as huge on them as I think a lot of people are setting them out to be. I think the Timberwolves, see how they do, and the Pelicans, of course. And I would love to see these teams like the Orlando Magic fall back, man. The Orlando Magic are that purgatory team, like we said last week, that they just we know what their ceiling is, right? And I
Yeah.
think they need to blow it up soon. And it's so funny because the Magic have never gone far to be like, yo, they need to blow it up. They're just not gonna make it with like Vooch as like their main guy. And there's always trade rumors about Aaron Gordon. I think they should just rebuild from the bottom. You have Mo Bamba, you have Cole Anthony, you have Jonathan Isaac. But I would love to see these teams kind of move up. Like I think the Pelicans are bound to be a playoff team. I don't know if it's gonna be this year. The Wolves are a little bit interesting to me because I don't like the fit of all their young pieces, but they have a substantial amount of young talent for them to flirt with making noise. So I'd love to see how that turns out. I think the team that I'm interested in the most is the Hornets because I love their coach. And I really do think, and of course, they added Gordon Hayward, but I think LaMelo Ball is going to catapult them into that 9 to 10 range, I think. And again, people might think that's not saying much, but that's all you need to be to kind of fight for that playoff spot, right? It's the 10th
Yeah.
seed.
Yeah, and the play-in, the whole thing with the play-in now, like the ninth seed has become extremely valuable because the ninth seed can beat an eighth seed.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think the Hornets they were better than what most people expected last year, right? And I think with the addition of Gordon Hayward and I think LaMelo Ball's ability to control an offense and to kind of lead a team. I mean, I don't want to say lead a team because we don't know how that's going to go, but I think to at least control an offense to set up a team is going to be hugely valuable. So I think this team is going to be very scrappy. It's going to be sneaky. I think if the Hornets make the ninth seed or 10th seed, they're going to be a team to look out for, man. I have really high hopes for the Hornets. But I'm with you, Jurgen. I am all for the new era to kind of step forward and kick these other teams out. You know, I'm a huge fan of the whole youth movement of the NBA, the 20 22 year olds. I think they're
Absolutely.
just more likable stars than the 2010 stars. I think this could be another segment, but they're all about ball. They're all about basketball. They're all about team first. I think there's no attitude. There's no egos. You know, I think the last decade we've seen the likes of Kyrie Irving, we've seen the John Walls, we've seen the Blake Griffins, great individual talents. But I'm a much bigger fan of Devin Booker, of LaMelo Ball, of Ja Morant, of Zion, of RJ Barrett. These guys that are just they live and breathe ball, but they're also not toxic to their organizations. You know, so that's why I'm rooting for them. Right? I think it's time for them. Again, they're young, so I don't want to put that unfair pressure on them. But I'm all for them taking a step forward and kind of ushering this new era officially. And to kind of do that, to kind of take a serious step forward, is for them to make playoffs. Is for these teams to make playoffs. And a lot of these teams are small market teams, man. And I think that's
Yeah.
what the NBA needs. The NBA needs these small market teams to step up. A primetime game this season is the Hornets versus the Pelicans. That's huge in my opinion, right? It's of course the Ball brothers have a huge part to do with that, but it's a monumental step in kind of restoring somewhat balanced the NBA. I think there's always gonna be the favorites. There's gonna be the Titan teams, the super teams. But for me, it's joyful to me to see these teams kind of step up.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're all definitely excited for that. Myself personally, fellas, I've gone through my 5 points. Is there any point that either of you guys missed that you want to get in before we go to the final parts?
Dame, you have one more, right?
Yeah, I had the Giannis extension.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah. So big story this whole offseason was, is Giannis going to sign the supermax with the Bucks? Is anyone going to trade for Giannis? Is he going to walk in free agency? The deadline to sign the supermax is in 11 days. It's December 21st, day before the season begins. So that's something to watch for in these next coming days. But if he doesn't, obviously, if he signs with it, signs the extension, there's nothing to worry about, nothing to talk about. But if he doesn't sign the extension, that's going to be a big story throughout the season. Is he going to sign in the offseason, or is he going to ask out? Are the Bucks going to look to trade him even if he doesn't ask out? Um, it's going to be interesting to see how that goes, because I do think the Bucks are one of the best teams in the East. But if they aren't winning the finals, not just making the finals, I don't think it's going to be enough to keep Giannis there. So we'll see how that goes this season.
Wow, 11 days.
Holy shit, it's already here.
Yeah, right. I think he reminded both of us because we both we knew it was close, but we don't know the exact date. So wow, there's Dame reminding all of you in case you forgot it. We are right there, ladies and gentlemen, to when will Giannis or if he will sign that supermax before this season. So, uh, and even though it wasn't one of our top stories, we already spoke so much about the Harden thing. We can move past that. And we spoke a little bit about this topic, and I'm going to let you guys kind of put the finishing touches on what we alluded to earlier. Paul George signed a contract extension with the Los Angeles Clippers, voiding his player option next year. He signed a 4-year extension to make it a 5-year deal, $226 million total. Personally, for me, guys, my perspective is this is a complete W for Paul George because he was not going to get this money in a year's time if he followed up the bad performance in the playoffs with a down season. So I think he cashed in at the right moment. Now, the Clippers, I felt they kind of had no choice because you traded so much for this guy. You had to keep at least him or Kawhi. And if Kawhi, I think there's a reason why Paul George signed. I think they had to have gone to Kawhi and asked him already. So considering that, I think it's a halfway decent signing for the Clippers because I think they were forced to, and this is a complete W for Paul George.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jurgen. I think they gave up so much for Paul George, and if you lose him, it's a horrible trade in hindsight, right? Because
Along
you
with
gave up all that.
Kawhi, yeah.
Yeah, it's you gave up all that, and all that includes Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is a budding star in the NBA, and also I think the market for the Clippers. I mean, I think the free agent market is kind of thinning down from what I've kind of read for next year, because I know next year's crop is gonna be, I think, better than what we got this season. But realistically, who could the Clippers actually get? I like LeBron's not gonna leave. AD re-signed. Giannis, who I don't think Giannis is gonna go to the Clippers, right? So I don't know who the Clippers are intrigued by or who they could realistically sign. So I agree with you. They had to re-sign Paul George. I don't think there's another piece in the market they would have gotten. I don't know who you could get for Paul George, because even though he's a star, I do think weirdly enough his value is pretty low.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they could do in terms of trading him, but because of what they traded for him, they had to do it. I think so. But it's a W for him, like you said. Like, he gets the bag, he gets paid, he gets to live in LA. It's up to him, honestly. Like, I think Kawhi's gonna do his thing. I think they had to consult with Kawhi. I think he has like a pretty good relationship with Paul George, even though Paul George is kind of like, he had his moments in the bubble, but I think ultimately they are boys, so they're gonna stick up for one another. I think it's a W on his end, but it's an NA for the Clippers, just because their backs are tied against the wall.
Oh yeah, like, I literally just agree with both of you guys. It's a W on both sides. Paul George got the money he got. I don't think he would have got the same amount of money going into next off season if he declined his player option, especially if he had another bad playoff performance like he did this year. On the Clippers end, like you said, it was such a big trade that they had no choice but to resign him. And also looking at it is like they had to look at it as like if they want to keep Kawhi, they need to keep Paul George, because if Paul George opted out and tried to do his own thing, I think there would be no shot that Kawhi would re-sign with the Clippers. So that's another factor I think that went into signing Paul George to Supermax. But yeah, I see it as a win on both sides. Paul George got his money. Clippers made the trade worth it, and hopefully for their sake, hopefully keep Kawhi for years to come as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point by you guys because people forget Paul George is the guy that ultimately Kawhi said, like, you get him, you get me. So I think while a lot of people are scratching their heads, this is the first major piece that they needed to do, the first major move they had to pull off, I should say, to increase their odds of keeping him next year. So phenomenal points.
Yeah, I think that's it. Do we have anything else, fellas?
I went through all my NBA points.
Yep, I checked all mine off.
I have one, but I feel like it'll entice a larger conversation. So should we save it, especially for Jurgen?
What is it?
Wait, why would it entice me?
Just say it and then you can delete it.
Because it's the Heat.
I'll be quick.
Okay. All right. Okay. So my last storyline before after this we got hockey news, right, Jurgen?
Yes, I will give a quick hockey update.
So my last storyline is one that I think Jurgen could kind of talk about the most because it involves his favorite team. And it's been a discussion amongst the internet is are the Heat a fluke?
Oh God.
Because they they made the finals in the bubble, and I think a lot of people think that the Heat, I guess quote unquote, for lack of a better term, got lucky. I guess I don't know what that means, but or they don't think that he would have made the finals under quote unquote normal circumstances.
Oh my.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the talk that I've been seeing online. I think the East got better, so I think the path to get there is going to be a lot difficult for them.
Oh, I
So
agree on
let me
that
just
part. I
yeah,
agree
yeah,
on that part.
yeah. So I'll let me. I guess me and Damien will go, and then Jurgen, you can kind of take over. So
Absolutely.
for me, I think everyone was at a disadvantage with the bubble. I think it was an even playing field. I'm not gonna fault the Heat for making the final. Like, well, they beat the Celtics, right? And then they beat the Bucks. Look, I get it. I think environment and like fans being there is a massive aspect, right? I think pressure is a massive aspect. So I do think taking into account the environmental aspects, sure, it could alter it. But I don't know what people wanted the Heat to do. It's like they beat the Celtics. I don't know if that would have been different under normal circumstances because Bam cooking you is not going to change if there's a crowd, right?
Thank you.
I also now for the Bucks, I'm not sure. I always thought the Heat had the best chance against the Bucks even before the season got shut down. I don't know. I just I think people are kind of downgrading the Heat to this extent, and I don't know why because like it's not their fault. Like they kind of just outplayed everyone. They outworked everyone. It was an even playing field, less travel for everyone. Again, I guess no fans. It makes a big difference. I get it, but I think every team kind of knew what they were getting into, right? And I guess the Heat culture has like trained their players to thrive in these type of environments, I feel like. So you can't fault the team for just being war ready. And I think shooters particularly benefit the most from like closed environments. So yeah, sure you can make that argument that Hero and Robinson had that advantage because they're snipers, but it's like the Heat constructed this roster, I think, for any type of environment. So Jurgen, I don't know if that was clear enough. I'm just kind of trying to see what the perspective is. I'm trying to just gain
Right.
perspective. I don't see a part where the Heat kind of did anything wrong. They just kind of played their games and they just kind of outworked everyone. So maybe you could describe it better. Damien, you go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think it was a fluke. I generally think the Heat are one of the best teams in the East. Uh, do I have them making the finals again this year? No, I don't. But would be surprised if they make it? No, because they do have a star in Jimmy Butler, who's borderline superstar, and in the playoffs he really was a superstar. They're very well coached team, one of arguably the best coaches in the league. Like you said, they have that culture where they will fight every single game and give their all. They have the defense, they have Bam, they have Tyler Hero, they have the shooters around Bam and Butler. So I don't think it was a fluke because of how well this team is really constructed and the coaching they have.
Okay, so well, first of all, I appreciate. This is why I like doing the show with you guys, because you guys are both such high level basketball minds that you're not going to let these garbage questions infiltrate this show in a way that all these other shows do. I'm going to break down the main points of what you said, Chris, really fast, and then I'm going to get to the hockey update because this is what I've been waiting for all day. The main point, kind of what you guys have said of like why people are trying to discredit this team in terms of how they made it there. The environment. There's two ways to look at this. Yes, did the shooters in Miami benefit from no home crowds? Absolutely. Damian, we've spoken at this at length. When there's no crowd there, not only is it less pressure, but the sight lines are so much better that you can just, like, it's easier to shoot. So that is 100%. Did Miami shooters benefit? Yes. But did the other shooters on other teams not benefit? Marcus Smart, this was the greatest three-point shooting stretch of his career during
Yeah.
these playoffs. And there was no crowd. The Milwaukee Bucks, did some of their shooters had some pretty good games, did they not? Because there was also no crowd. To the no crowd point, would some of Miami's young players have struggled a little bit? Yes. But it wasn't the crowds that were giving issues. It was game planning. And this is my ultimate point about this. In the NCAA tournament, where every year I think is you arguably get the most deserving champion in the NCAA every year because it's always in a neutral environment, in a neutral arena. And while there are fans there, it's all about which coach game plans their players the best. And in the NBA playoffs, so the first time ever in a neutral environment where all the teams had the same advantages and disadvantages, Miami game planned Milwaukee better than Milwaukee game planned them, and they game planned the Celtics better than the Celtics could do to them. Because even if there were home environments, the game plan around Giannis does not change. The game plan against Tatum and the Celtics does not change. You let Kemba do what he wants. Like, this whole notion that the fans are the end all be all sometimes, like, I understand that sports fans, we kind of have an ego and we want the game to be more about us, but get real, man. Like yes, would Tyler Hero, would he have had like a 30-point game against the Celtics? The odds are slightly less. But are we going to totally discredit that because he's now a professional athlete who the whole point is that he's supposed to score against crowds like this, which by the way, he kind of did because he played at, I don't know, Kentucky. Like, so like at the end of the day, the whole crowd thing, like I think it's easy ways to go by that. And one of you said one more point that it's kind of escaping me. Dame, what was another point that you and Chris made aside from the crowd?
I didn't make any point because I thought it was completely stupid to think that was a fluke.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Well, you're right.
yeah,
You're right.
yeah.
No, I think, and here's the thing, Dame. I agree with your point. I have zero expectation of us making the finals this year. That's not my
Mm-hmm.
expectation because I always believed 2021, 2022, that's always been the goal because something's going to happen in the 2021 offseason. The fact that we made the finals, all that does is set us up for the future. Like, I
It makes
don't.
them like a destination that people want to go to because how successful they were without that extra superstar.
Exactly. So overall, and this is just a wild thing from fans. Like they're just mad that it wasn't their team. Like I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. Like people are just
Yeah,
mad that their team couldn't make that run. But and I know Chris said this. Like I agree. Sometimes this word kind of gets on my nerves. And this is my team, but culture is a real thing. When you develop the right culture, that's what makes you a 20-year constant championship contender like the Spurs. And that's what gets you ready for any environment. Because Chris, you made the best point. Miami literally trains its guys to play in any environment. They could have been playing games in Argentina and the players would have been ready for it. Like that's not a joke. That's legitimately the mindset that's instilled. And also, if there was no COVID, by the way, Kendrick Nunn, he wouldn't have gotten COVID, which was the main reason why physically he was off the entire playoff run. So, rookie of the year candidate. There you go. Aside from that, like, no, this is one of those like sports cliche debates that they need. They got to fill time, whatever. As a Heat fan, look, I took my loss on the chin. I was very proud of this team, and I'm not going to downgrade what the Celtics or Bucks did. I genuinely, I maybe a little bit of what we could do next week with our standing predictions. I think the Celtics and Bucks should be the favorites over the Heat this next season, like straight up. But that doesn't discredit what they did last year. Last year was last year, and this year was this year. So that's all my thoughts on that. I don't know how much of that. I don't think any of that should go because I think that was just a random topic. But that's, of course, with Chris and his editing. I feel bad for the guy.
It's all good.
So to end off the show, ladies and gentlemen, hockey. I've been waiting for this for a long time. Now, Chris and Dame, you guys have both anointed me as the main hockey guy on this show. For that, I appreciate it.
Forever.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm not going in depth with anything. I'm just going to give you guys the recent news because a lot of people forget while the NBA happens, the NHL happens too. While the NBA bubble was a success, so was the NHL bubble. And the fact that the bubble was a success and the fact that the guys completed the season, I was very proud of. So some quick dates and things going into next season. As of now, the hopeful start date, which is still a fluid situation, is January 13th for the NHL regular season to start. The idea is that it would most likely be a 56-game regular season with non-playoff teams starting training camp in late December. The 28th is the most popular day I've heard from there. And all the teams that made the expanded playoffs begin playing about January 1st or just after New Year's. Again, these are all still fluid dates because the NHLPA and the owners and the board of governors all need to give finalization on these plans. So this is all still very fluid, but those are the main ideas in terms of what we know. This is, I think, the big topic. What will the divisions look like this year? There is ideas of changing up the divisions for this season as a way to try to downgrade the amount of traveling as best as possible. If you guys want me to say the divisions really fast, I can, that are proposed. But if not, just know that the idea behind different divisions for this season, I would have thought the NBA would have tried to do, it was decrease the amount of travel that these teams had to do.
Yeah, the MLB did something like that. They did They don't travel across the coast. They stay in their division.
Exactly. That just like the MLB, the NHL is doing that, and also just like the MLB, the NHL is thinking about adding taxi cab players, which are like those relief players that are on AHL contracts, minor league contracts, but get NHL benefits and various things, like obviously for reserve purposes. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the NHL, this is the best update we've got in weeks in terms of the season starting soon. The NHL is no stranger to having their seasons get cut short because of various things. Like, I know you guys are predominantly NBA, and I know Dame follows the NFL a lot. Like, of course, there's lockouts here and there, but like the last two lockouts resulted in 0 games lost for the NFL, and the last NBA lockout resulted in 66 games. Since the start of the 2000s, the NHL has lost the season to a lockout, a full season, and the season was cut short in 2012 to 13 to 48 games. So a 56-game regular season because of a disease, that's nothing new to this league. So that's really about it for the hockey updates. I was very glad to give that to you guys. If in the coming weeks, or maybe next week, depending on everything, if Chris wants me to give a quick rundown on everything, we could. But if not, that's the first bit of hockey news on the show, and I'm proud of it.
No, good shit, bro. It's like I look, I would love to educate myself on NHL a little bit more. But again, Jurgen, you might have some possible guests to accompany you maybe in the future that are also hockey fans.
Yeah, so I have a good friend of mine from high school that me and him have spoken about hockey so much in our off time. Uh, he doesn't have a mic at the moment, but he's actually in the process of getting a microphone. Like he was getting one for himself anyway. So I've spoken to him, and if we can work things out timing wise, which I think we would be able to, he could definitely get on the show here and there for whenever we're gonna talk hockey. So it's but potential exciting times because like Chris said, like they both Chris and Dame have said, like they don't know too much about hockey. They kind of rely on me to carry that, and I will gladly do it, and I will champion our hockey cause all the way to as far as we go as a show. But I'll definitely love to bring people along the way and educate you guys, because I'm telling you guys, like playoff hockey, whenever we get to it again, it's entertaining, man.
I don't doubt that, brother. Yeah. Okay, so I think that's it for this week. Jurg, how about you sign us off since you let us?
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Just like I did in college, ladies and gentlemen. But in all seriousness, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Somewhat Sports Podcast. We're continuing to go strong. Chris, Damon, and myself, we're gonna keep bringing you guys all the news, all the analysis. We had another great show today. Went a little bit longer than I think we had expected, but that just goes to show like how in depth we can really go on our analysis. And like I mentioned earlier, I love doing the show with these two guys. These are two of the best guys that I can talk sports with. So another episode done well by you fellas, especially. You guys were great. And next week, like you said, Chris, I think it's time. I think next week we finally take a true in-depth look at our NBA 2020-2021 season preview.
Yeah, Jerk. Thanks for the emotional comments, bro. Thanks, bro. Appreciate it a lot. Dame, any final comments?
No, I just hope everyone has a blessed day, blessed week. Good vibes.
Yeah, wear a mask, guys. Shit's getting hectic out there.
Oh, yeah.
All right, guys. Peace.